Hello, Dapplings, and welcome back to Factorio. A little bit later than expected due to some technical difficulties, but here we are. We are back on the oil train that we set up in the last episode. Now, since then, I've had the opportunity to read over some of the comments and some of the tips and hints left for me, and the very first thing I want to address in this episode is the throughput issue for our oil loading station. A lot of people pointed out that the pipes have a significantly smaller throughput than the pumps do. The pumps can move a lot more liquid through themselves than the pipes can hold. And one way of us addressing this is to have the pumps load directly from tanks themselves. And this will allow the tanks to use their significantly larger kind of stock of oil to support pumping the oil into the train. Now, we will want this about there, I'm thinking. Oh, that's just slightly, ever so slightly off. There we go, that will do. And because I'm finicky about such things, let's mirror this across. There we are. Done and done. So thank you very much for that tip. This should allow significantly faster loading of our trains. And in fact, we'll probably use exactly the same system for the unloading in the same way. There we are, all done and done. And now, because I would very much like to ensure that these tanks are emptied, and we're probably going to move things around a little bit, let's grab one last pump and have that one empty out all of these tanks into these ones. It shouldn't take over long for it to be able to do that. It should just pull all of this down from the other tanks. And then as these empty out, we can get rid of them and move things around. But that's the first thing that we wanted to do. Now, today's focus is going to be on setting up refining. Now, before we actually get to refining, I kind of need to set up the production of the refinery buildings. Yes, I know. I said I wasn't going to add anything more to the bootstrap base, but this one shouldn't be too hard because it's pretty much attacking something on to the locomotive line. We need a chemical plant and a oil refinery. So we should be able to set these up just down here with very minimal addition to the lines. Let's go ahead and park in there. There we go. That is perfect. Now, the chemical plant and the oil refinery pretty much use everything that we've got here with the exception of stone brick. So we're going to have to bring that in also. Let's go ahead and keep researching while we're at it. Flammable, since we're actually playing with oils, might be something for us to look at. But we can already build solar panels if we particularly wanted to. And that would help us out a little bit because it would take the strain off our steam setup, at least during the day. So let's go ahead and start researching that. Whether we actually end up building those down here or not, well, that's another story entirely. Now, we are going to want a couple of, let's see, I believe we've got our assembly 2s down here. Yes, we do. Let's grab a couple of these. There we go. Don't pay any mind to the awful clutter of my inventory. Please, it would be a personal favor if you just didn't bring it up. Right, so let's have a look. For the oil refinery, we're going to need pipes. We're going to need pipes for both. But everything else is just on this line, pretty much. Yeah, we don't need the iron, we just need the pipes and we need the stone. So let's get stone onto this line, then we can swap this line around to the other side and we should be good. Should be golden, in fact. Now, how are we going to do that? Ideally, we would want the stone bricks to be on the outside. So, for example, if we were to run a line... Oops, not like that. That is squiggly and all over the place. If we were to run a line all the way up here and then down on that side, it would work. So you could just have it on the outside and then roll it down on the other side there. Or alternatively, we can just have the line kind of hop, skip, and a jump across and then connect up on this side. For example, we could do something along these lines. If we decide where we're going to bring the belts across, somewhere around here, I'm thinking. If we have a little belt system like that, and then we jump up, we should be able to just connect in. And we'll have all of the stone bricks on that side there. That should work quite conveniently for us. But there's almost always a lazy way you can just get the belts to squiggle in the right general vague direction and get what you need. We could have just had it connect on this outside, gone all the way up and then all the way down, but honestly that would have meant we'd have so much bricks on this belt needlessly. Now, we are going to want one there and probably give the space of an entire section here just so that we can have... Oh, my lord, I'm out of power poles. Just so we can have 2 separate chests there as well. Let me go and grab the power poles. I'm always going to be low on something. We no longer need furnaces on our hotbar for now, though. Let's pick these up. Do we have enough of these? Not really. So let's top those up as well. There we are. There are many things that I could drop off, honestly, and I probably should make a point of doing that, just so that we've got more inventory space to play with, if nothing else. But since we've got this here, should I be that much of a scallywag? Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and be that much of a scallywag for now. I'm also going to want some red cables there, just to make this nice and easy. Now, if we place this right here, I should be able to reach everything that I'm going to need. Perfect. Now, if I tell you to be the chemical plant, since you don't require the stone, this will allow me to run the stone line just up a little bit further behind. There we go. And that way we're not using up the stone down here, but we're still carrying stone the entire way up that line unnecessarily. Now, what is the things that you need the most? You only need 5 pipes, but you need a lot of steel and gears. Okay, well, that is fine then. We can get a blue handled inserter there, a long handled inserter here to grab the electronic parts. And can we get that across? Sure, you know what, why not? Now, what we are going to want to do here is hook this up with a little cable. There we are. Now, I'm not sure how many of these will stack to. I think it's probably going to be 5 or 10. Let's assume it's 10. And let's say, sure, if there's less than, let's say 50 chemical plants in there, then this can be active. And there we go, and that should start pulling everything in. And now we just need to connect this line up there, and that is ready to go. We'll do exactly the same on this side, and for the large part, this is what I use the combinator stuff for, and that's just these wires. And it's not even combinator magic at this point. It's just giving a condition to an inserter on when it can be active. But that can do so much for you. Let's set that to 50 as well. So we've got a nice amount. Let me just make sure that everything is correctly set. There we go. So these will be running happily for now. And we'll set up exactly the same on this side. And there we go. This should now be able to produce us all of the oil refineries that we need, using the bricks and the pipes as necessary. Perfect. There we are. That didn't take too much. You know what? I'm so happy with this little area. I'm going to give you a light. Only my favorite places get lights. Now, with that all on the way, we now have to deal with some issues. The issue in question is where we're going to set up the refinery. I'm thinking that we could have a little refinery somewhere down here. Eventually that's going to be gone away, but if we had some sort of little area here, in fact, if we put the junction closer to this roundabout, maybe even move the roundabout a little bit, that would be much more useful for this oil refinery. And indeed, these refineries up there could all use the same overall track going straight up. Yeah, actually, we could just move this defense and have a track going straight north that would be able to connect these two oil wells up, and then we'd have the refinery somewhere in the middle. I think that's probably a good idea. Do I have many grenades? I do not. Do I have much ammo? I do not. Well, let me go and grab those, and we're going to have to go and clear out some biters so that we can safely start building. Also, probably going to have to clear out some trees as well. So I shall bring you back when all of that fun stuff is done. Also, oh, we're getting low on coal. That is a worry. And welcome back. As you've probably noticed, I went on a little bit of a clearing spree, removing biter bases that were going to be in our probably immediate future build path. Now, there is no nice way of putting this. Yes, we did absolutely just wipe out the indigenous life in order to take their land so that we could build hugely polluting industry on it. We are not the good guy in this story. Make your peace with that, because it'll keep coming back and reminding you of this again and again and again. It's going to beat you over the head with that point until your head resembles, well, pretty much what the biter bases resemble after we've rolled through them, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. But moving on, we have a new track set up, and we're probably going to be building our refinery area down here. Now, we've got a nice little loop there, so trains should be able to move back and forth, but we want to build a junction so that we could branch off and actually access the area down here. Now, there are a bunch of ways that you can build junctions, but since a lot of people have been saying that me talking through building the junctions as I go has been helping them get a better idea of how the chain signals and the signals work, I decided we'll do this one on camera. Now, that's the correct size that we want there. Now, the thing that you've got to think about this little junction is right now, it will work perfectly fine on this side. So if a train was coming down here and wanted to get into this little turn, into this junction, they would have to go all the way around and come back up. And honestly, that's perfectly fine. You can happily work with that if you so choose. Now, is that correct? No, we've built that just a little bit too far forward. Let me just correct this then, and we can try that again. I prefer the straight pieces to exist just off from these. So, for example, I would want the signals to be here and here, for example. So let's try and get that to line up. Is that going to line up? It is not. This junction flatly refuses to do that. And that's one of the things with blueprints, with trains, that is going to come a cropper every now and then. And that is that they are going to, they're not going to perfectly align with the grid at all times. But we'll work with this one for now. So there we are. There's our junctions. If we bring up the signals, we can see, based on color, what represents a single block. So if a train is moving through here, no train can move through here. So if there was a train there and a train here, they can't both move into this area at the same time. But one of them could move in and then jam, which is why we always replace the entrance to every junction with a chain signal. It has to be able to see a completely clear way out before it can move into the junction. Otherwise, it might be blocking it for another train. And that is not something that we want. But what if, in this particular instance, we want to allow trains from this side to get in here as well, to save them a little bit of a trip. Now, in this particular scenario, it's not really necessary because it can just do a U-turn just down here. It's so simple. And even if it wanted to leave this area onto this line and go down there, honestly, it's not much more of a trip for it to go around. If you're using rotary junctions in a lot of places, then it really does simplify the job of building these more traditional junctions. But with that said, let's think as if we did want a train to be able to make its way in here. A train coming down here, because that's the direction this train goes. If it wants to get in, it has to get in on this track, so it has to cross there. And if we want to get onto that line, we have to cross that way. So there we go. So now we've got two new, or rather one new entrance. So we put a chain signal there. But this gives rise to a new kind of problem. That is, this entire block is now one signal, because although a train going this way and a train going this way, normally they can enter this kind of section at the same time. Now there is a potential for them to collide. So this entire thing, if a train just wanted to go from south to north and another train just wanted to go from north to south, they would have to wait for each other at this junction now, because it's all considered one thing. An easy way to fix that, let's put down those signals. Now these are two separate things. So they'll only get in each other's way if one of them is actually trying to cross the path. Now, I used chain signals here, and that was for a reason. Let me just quickly demonstrate in the hypothetical why I use chain signals there instead of regular signals. Let's say a train was coming down here. Now, I've already said we don't ever want it to be able to enter the junction unless it can get out of that junction. This chain signal is keeping an eye on this regular signal and this one as well. It won't let a train through if the path it wants to go is red. Now, what would red mean here? Red for this signal just means that there's something in this yellow section here. So this train, if it wants to pull across, it would get up to here. Let's say there isn't a train in this section. It would see this being green. But this being green does not suppose that this one is green, because it only cares about the block that is beyond it, the yellow part of the rail here. So this train, wanting to pull across, let's say there was a train here in this cyan portion, would check, because there's a chain signal, it would chain with this signal. This signal doesn't see a train in the yellow section, so it's green. The train would pull out, it would get to this signal, and then it would stop, because it can't go any further. Well, we've now completely jammed up our junction. The train that wants to go from south to north can't get through now, because there is a train basically parked on the junction. In fact, worse still, the train that wants to go from north to south on the other line still can't, because again, this whole area is now blocked. That is why we use a chain signal here. And exactly the same reason on this side as well. If a train was pulling out, we want it to check this signal. Is this signal is looking for the signals beyond it being green. If it wants to go north, then this cyan section has to be clear for it to be able to pull all the way through the yellow section and carry on going. And if it wants to go south, it has to check this chain signal, but this one is also watching that one. So in effect, this signal has eyes 2 signals further on the south route. It's not only checking whether the yellow is clear, it's not only checking whether the blue is clear, it's checking whether the cyan is clear as well. And only in that particular situation is it going to let a train pull out if it's heading south. So that fixes that. Now, this fits in quite nicely with our current setup of our junctions. But one thing it doesn't allow is for a train that wants to pull up and go east from south, whilst there is a train that wants to go west to north, from the east to north, rather. It's moving westerly, northwesterly. That is a little bit more tricky. It wouldn't fit neatly into our little grid here, because we need signals in this case here and here, but on the outsides, unfortunately, and we can't fit them in. If I were to delete this, then I could put those signals in. Now, if this matters to you, then we can just design a bigger junction. And welcome back. Okay, so I have had to redesign the junction. Basically, I needed to push the power poles a little bit further north so that we'd have just a tiny bit more room by taking that turn earlier and extending the travel time in this little triangle here so that we have a little bit more room for the signals. But overall, it's still exactly the same problem. We want to break this block up into individual sections. We want a section going north-south, a section going northeast, from the south to the north, from the south to the east, and from the east to the north. And we want them to all act independently. Now, unfortunately, that isn't just the addition of 1 or 2 extra signals, because we need to make sure that no line doesn't have a signal. Anywhere that these tracks cross, we need to isolate. So the first obvious one is we can isolate the diagonals there and there. There we go. Now they're flashing because they've kind of got a circular route. Yes, realistically, a train couldn't go around here. The tracks don't allow for that. But the signal doesn't care. It only cares, is a track that I'm watching also leading behind me? If so, then that is a problem. So we now need to break these routes. So signal there and there. These are the ones that we initially wanted to add in. Now we've created new blocks here. But the problem isn't completely solved, because this is still a single block. If a train going from the south to the east pulled out, it is now in this block. So the train going from the east, going from the east to the north would have to wait here because this is blocked. So you finally need a signal right. You need the signals here and here, because again, if I put it there, technically this little hump there exists, which is a little bit weird, but anyway, it is a thing. So let's pop these signals there and there, and we have now completely isolated this central section of the junction. Is now its own thing. It doesn't actually care too much about who's pulling out or in. The only time this section ever gets interacted with is if a train is literally moving through here, so from the south to the north, or it's crossing in one of these directions, which means that these two, which are now independent blocks, still acting as one because we've used chain signals and they care about what's happening next. These are distinct. So a train could pull from the south into the east, whilst a train was pulling from the east into the north, whilst a train was moving from the north to the south. Those could all be happening at once, and the junction doesn't clog up. And so that's probably the most functional form of junction. Like I said, it's very slightly out of whack with the distances of the power poles and the way that we would normally have our track working. So this power pole had to move up by like one space, frustratingly. It was only just out. But this is the junction that we're going to be working with from now on. So let's go ahead and grab everything that's involved in it. There we go. Pump. There we are. And we are going to label this... well, what have I currently got in my bag of tricks? Okay, so we've marked it as an O. So we'll mark this one as a T. There we go. And it'll be a nice little T junction. Now, hopefully, this will rotate correctly. I mean, it sort of will, sort of won't. Again, trains don't snap perfectly to the grid as a function of that. You know, you'll sometimes have situations, as we saw earlier, where I couldn't align one of my other blueprints perfectly with where I wanted it to. But those instances notwithstanding, this should be quite useful in a modular network. So T junction. There we go. And we're done. There we go. You can, again, if you had two of these mirrored, you would effectively have a rotary junction. Honestly, a more functional one, because if all of the trains were just trying to make the diagonal turns, none of them would get in each other's way, whereas with the rotary junction, they would. But I just kind of like roundabouts, I'm going to be honest with you. There we go. So with that done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set out a new station. You've seen me set up stations now, so I'm just going to set up a little offloading station, and then we'll get down to the factory building for the refinery. Okay, here we go. We've got crude oil drop-off and the pumps. It's basically the same station in reverse, but for the sake of convenience in the future, ooh, I do need to pop this one down there, right there as well. We will be setting this up to on a blueprint all of its own. There we go, and grab that. Bonk. Don't need that in there. We don't want the train stop names. Honestly, what did we have the previous book set up with? No, train station and a pump. So let's go with a train station and a pump as well. And this should be unloading. Oh, well, D for drop-off, realistically, but we're just going to have to go with that one. Liquid cargo, unloading. For consistency with the rest of the game, I should probably call it fluid, but no. I've started, so I'll finish. There we go. That should help us out in the future as well. We can just pop that one in there. Perfect. Okay, we've got a bunch of extra junctions now. No. Did I not pop the blueprint? Oh, I didn't put our T-junction blueprint in there. That was rather silly of me, wasn't it? Let's pop this in here. Let's pop these around. There we go. Perfect. There we are. All nice and neat. I'm going to pop down some lights over here, though, because it is bloody dark. There we are. That'll help out quite a lot. Right, so at this point, we can, well, after we've set up the next bit of research, and to get to chemical science, we're going to need advanced electronics next. So let's go ahead and start that one researching. We can, at this point, set up our crude oil pickup train. Actually, let me just check. Pickup, drop-off, and then refueling. So that should be fine. Let's add in to crude oil drop-off. I want you to completely empty your cargo before heading to a refueling station and then waiting on a bit of inactivity. Let's see how fast these pumps are able to all of that fuel out of there. And just like that. Oh my lord. That is scarily efficient. My goodness, I can appreciate why everyone was so insistent that I switch over to tanks. My goodness. But with that, we can now start building our refinery. So to do that, I'm going to have to head on down to pick up the chemical plant and refining. Now, we're probably going to want to stick a refueling station up there, because this is a heck of a trip just to go down and get some more fuel. In fact, on that note, is there even much fuel down there anymore? That is a little bit of a worry, isn't it? Nevertheless, I'm going to just go and grab these while I'm here. Let's have a look. Oh, actually, yeah, they stack to 10. Okay, well, we'll take 20 of each. We are honestly not going to use 20 of each. That's just not a thing that's going to happen. Do I have any fuel on me? I've got 10 trees. Well, 10 trees, 10 logs. I've not got 10 trees. Most a pity, really. Though I am noticing... Oh, no. Oh, yes, a lot of the coal miners are out for the count now. I suspect we are going to start seeing a dramatic reduction in our smelting efforts as a direct response to this. That is something that is very, very concerning, and we do need to deal with that. And it's only a matter of time at this point. Okay, well, something to be aware of, and that's why we're setting up the solid fuel refining, or rather the solid fuel production, I should say, the oil refining. Now, it's going to be inefficient to start with, because we do not yet have a particularly good system for that. We do need to research chemical science to get the most efficient recipe. Ooh, yeah, we are hurting a little bit for that. Let's set this up. We may end up going for the coal area that we spotted a little while ago. 1.5 million over there that we can see, but it's only what we can see. I think the more of it that you have uncovered, the more you can see of the deposit that actually exists there. Either way, that's something that we definitely need to get back to, and rather sharpish as well. Okay then, with fuel restocked, at least for now, we can have a look at refining. Now, ultimately, we want to refine stuff down so that we can run it through a chemical plant, and right now our options are making batteries, which we would need to make sulfur, which is further things we need to do, plastics, so on and so forth. But solid fuel requires 20 petroleum gas and 2 seconds of time. This is what we want. We want to have solid fuel being produced and then being loaded by another train, which will take it away for us. So this location is going to need 2 types of trains. We're going to need the unloading down here, and probably another junction a little bit further up with a loading station, much the same way to take this fuel elsewhere. But first, we need to get the petroleum gas. Now, presently, it's just being stocked up down here. We could give it a little bit more room for storage, and I don't see any particular problem with that one, honestly. It's have a good number of these storage tanks, so we want the trains to be able to run pretty much constantly and always be filling these up. There we go. That should give us quite a lot of room to grow. Now, let's have a look into this. Now, each recipe changes the way the outputs and the inputs work. So let's just have a look. So we're just going to be using one side. That's probably quite good, because I believe the advanced recipe, when it gets researched, will introduce water down here and then 2 new types of outputs. So that should be fine. So we want everything more or less oriented on the far side. So let's... Well, I mean, does this take up more or less the same room? Not quite, but near as damn it, I suppose. Sure, we'll have them set up something like that. We may as well just start somewhere. We'll have that bridge across and set that one up. There we go. Now, actually, what we will do is we'll have that be linked up like this. This way, I can have a couple more of these nearby one another. There we go. And again, have this one there. But further to that, I'm going to go ahead... Ooh, do I not... Really? I've come all this way and I don't have any... Oh, wait. What's that behind your ear? Ah, fantastic. You had my pipe sections all along. You know what? I'm so happy to see that you had my pipe sections and that I wasn't a massive derp and I completely been back and forth to the base and hadn't brought them back. I'm going to forgive you for hiding them from me. Oh, you prankster. Okay, so moving on. Let's get all of this done and done. There we go. Oh, we want to copy that across. And then just run these between one another. We are going to want a lot of these working. More or less all the time. As long as energy will allow for it, we want these to be running. Spark up a little bit more out to the way. There we go. How many more did we set on that side? Yeah, sure. We'll go with this. I'm going to call that there because right now I'm worried about the energy in the base, being able to manage this much extra stuff going on, we definitely need to upgrade that a bit. And by a bit, I mean a lot, unfortunately. Right, okay, so with that done, whomp. Oh, damn it, really. Whomp. And then we're going to need to bring up some energy besides. How much can we squeeze this energy around? Not that much, unfortunately. Vexing, but okay. We'll do something like this then. And if we bring this up, we can have that sat in the middle of them. There we go. We are refining. How are we doing for power? Actually, not too bad. Now, the stuff being made has nowhere to go. That is the next problem that we need to solve. Now, in the future, we're going to be producing a lot of other things here. So, it'll end up being something along these lines. I'm going to want liquid to be removed from here because we can't ever allow for these to cross paths. If we ever do, it makes problems for us, basically. So, with that design there, each output is isolated from each other. So we need to build with that in mind, hook up all of the petroleum pipes, and then we can start offloading it to tanks. So something like this will do. Again, it's worth planning for the future. Obviously, I know what's coming, so it's a little bit easier for me. But that's why I'm giving you a bit of a heads up. You want to make sure that your refineries isolate their outputs. There we go. Now, rather than kicking the can down the road later on and having to solve the problem then, I've gone ahead and laid all of this out. Now, we're probably going to want to expand this further, if I'm perfectly honest. I've gone a little bit too far with that part. But for now, this should do. Now, we're going to want a storage area for all of the different resources. Now, we're not going to necessarily want a massive storage area for them, considering the recipe takes 100 crude oil and turns it into, I believe, 45 petroleum gas. And yeah, I just dumped all of that. I am a scallywag, I know. But we're effectively halving the mass. Still, let's give ourselves a bit of breathing room. Let's use 4 tanks for each, shall we? Something like this should do. And then later on, we can expand that if we want. And by 4 tanks, I mean 8 tanks. I can count. What are you talking about? There we go. And there we are. 4 long, 2 tall. This will be for whatever that produces. It may be light oil, it may be heavy oil, but this one, actually, let's line that up with the very side if we can. There we go. And then finally, this one can hook up as well. Now, I could make it a little bit easier by doing this as well, I suppose, wherever it happens to fit. This one doesn't fit anywhere else, unfortunately. Oh, no, actually, yes, it does. There we go. There we are. So this is going to be our stockpile of petroleum gas. Now, chemical science has been completed. Marvelous. What are we going to work on next? Well, it can only be anything that we can do with the first 2 sciences. So, mining productivity, increase the yield from all mining drills and pump jacks. Sure, why not? But let's go ahead and get that, since we are using quite a lot of our resources right now. There we go. And finally, it's time to start placing down our chemical plants. Now, these are going to take a liquid, or in this case a gas, and they're going to produce a solid. So we do need to allow for that to be collected. And I think something like this will do quite nicely for that. Let's set these up in a row. We're not actually going to want too many of these set up, realistically speaking. Something like this may do. Let's see what we can power. Right there. And there, yes, certainly this will work quite nicely. It has a little bit of an overlap, but I don't mind that one too much right now. Can we get power up here? We can. Perfect. So let's do that. There we go. Now these are all going to want to be producing solid fuel. Let's copy that across. There we go. Then finally, we need the petroleum gas. Now this can run the whole line. Honestly, on this side, I'm going to prevent that just so that I can still walk through here. It's very tempting to have it go the whole way, but in this particular instance, I think it's best not to. And we can do that, like so. This, and then bridge that across like this. And then we can just continue expanding northward. In fact, considering how much petroleum gas we're going to... solid fuel we're going to want, might be worth me doing. Now, this takes, if I have a quick look at the recipe, takes 2 seconds to craft. We'll get 2 pieces of solid fuel out of each refining process, and the refining process itself requires 5 seconds. We should be okay. We've got a lot of refineries, and honestly, I'm just going to expand this out to the extent that we can manage it, but we don't need a particularly fast inserter for removing this. It's not going to be happening nearly quickly enough. Later on we might. Oh, really? On second thoughts, we absolutely need fast inserters. What was I thinking before? There we go. So we've got our line of solid fuel, but I'm going to want to extend this. So once again, with the power of editing. There we go. Now, doesn't that look nice and form over function? It's actually quite functional, though, as well. So, you know, bit of the best of both worlds in this one. Let's pop that right there. So for the time being, I'm not sure how much more we might want to stack this, but let's assume that we're not going to be stacking it too much more. And put the unloading station somewhere around here. Now, using the same junction that we have down there, we can totally do that. Alternatively, we can create a branch from this station. Now, right now, this is a stacker that only leads to this station, but that isn't to say we can't have this go a little bit further and just come around and be an independent track that leads up to the loading station. And it will have its own stacker further up. Or indeed, we could use these two as the stackers for the loading station. They would only pass on when necessary. Though in this particular instance, I don't think that's particularly necessary for us. We can just bring this all the way around. This should look quite nice when it's done. Again, though, you've seen me build a loading and unloading station numerous times, so I shall bring it back when we're done. Also, there's going to be some tree murdering in my... Look, we're going to have a discussion later about you nicking my stuff and hiding it in strange places. The pipes were funny, but you're playing with explosives now, and I don't even want to begin the discussion about where you decided to stash those. Let's just leave it at that. Don't do it again. Nevertheless, lots of tree murder and a station lie in my immediate future. I shall bring you back when that's all done. And there we go. We have our solid fuel pickup station. Now, at this point, we are going to need to worry a little bit about how we're going to get it down to the main base, but we should be able to probably run a little line over here just to drop off solid fuel specifically, which is then going to replace coal as our... well, more or less for all of the purposes that we currently use it in the base, save for the recipes that strictly need coal. So, for example, grenades need coal. You can't use solid fuel to make grenades, but you can use solid fuel to run the boilers, to run all of the smelting applications, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and make ourselves a new train. We'll start it out over here. Drop these in. There we go. Now, for the time being, I am going to want you to have the same coloring. So 120, 120, and 120, since it's a nice, good shade of grey, kind of matches, I feel. We're going to want you to go to solid fuel pickup and wait until either full cargo or inactivity. And I will give you something else to do once that's done. Do I have fuel to pop in there? I do, as it happens. Quite a lot of solid fuel, in fact. So you're going to run for for a while longer. Now, the thing about the different types of fuels, they have different, obviously, the amount of fuel that's in them is an obvious one. But further to that, they actually affect the vehicle's acceleration, its braking speed, that sort of thing. They have different effects on the vehicles themselves. So generally, running your vehicles on a better fuel is going to give it better overall statistics. In its top speed will perhaps not move as quickly, but it can definitely accelerate to its top speed a lot faster. So let's go ahead and have you pull into the station and start loading up. There we go. And you can just hang tight there for a little while, because we have to go back and set up a new station for it. Now, How is the production? Yeah, we're starting to hit the point where we're not making enough petroleum gas at this stage. Now, I could use a pump to ensure that the petroleum gas is being delivered to everything as fast as we possibly can. That being said, you know, we're not doing terrible, but we've definitely got room to expand. But until we improve our current power generation, I think that's a bit premature. Oh, actually, before we head down, you may have noticed that I use a very, very simplified junction over here because there's really only one direction that the trains are going to be leaving. I don't need a double direction, so just using chain signals through here to create, again, a junction that will work. So a train can be going north-south without interrupting with a north-south without interrupting the south-north, or the east-north trains. They can run independently, which is exactly what they should be doing there. You don't always need some sort of tileable one. Sometimes the solutions are so easy, you just build them every single time, and it's not a big problem. Now, I am going to have to worry about the fences up there. That is something that we're going to have to go and deal with probably sooner rather than later, if I'm perfectly honest. But for the time being, let's just swing on down. I'm going to drop off my fuel for the refueling station. I'm just going to pop a few solid fuel blocks in there, along with the coal that I've transported down. Eventually, we will completely replace all of this, but for the time being, yeah, we're actually starting to get there a little bit with the energy generation. We're going to need a little bit more than we've got right now. Okay, so we want a new drop-off station. It doesn't need to be too much. In fact, we could even have it in here. Ooh, now there's an idea. How about that? How about we do something along those lines then? We can probably set that up. It'll be the simplest solution for us. And there's nothing wrong with the simple solution. We want unloading. There we go. And we want this more or less lined up right about there. Sure, let's pop that down. There we are. Now we're going to need a chain signal here. Again, we don't want it pulling into that junction if there's not enough room. Now, we will not have nearly enough of these, I suspect. No, we're going to have enough to literally place down exactly what we have in the blueprint, but the blueprint isn't strictly correct there, unfortunately. So we just need to go and grab a few odds and sods, and then we're going to have switched over to solid fuel, as promised in this episode. Wow, it's nice to actually do the thing that I tell you that I'm going to do in the last episode. This is a rare feeling for me. Allow me to bask in its glory for a moment. Okay, that's enough basking. Let's continue on with the building. There we go. This should be good enough for us. We don't actually need a power cable down here. We'd only need that if we were going to be inserting fuel at that destination, which we are not. Now, I would very much like if we could go and grab where we are. Well, actually, if we use the maps a little bit easier. Zoom in. I would like pretty much this entire name. Just grab that so I can be ultra lazy. Let's pop that in here. This is not a copper drop-off. I need to fix that. My lord. And there we are. Solid fuel drop-off. Need to fix the color, though. But yes, I need to tell the stations, the blueprints, rather, to stop using station names and indeed the station colors as well, because they're not correct anymore. There we go. It's a bit of a tight squeeze, I know, but it shouldn't be too bad. In fact, you know what? What we can do here is have a little splitter right there that will split some of the produce off, the solid fuel off, and run it down to our refueling station just down here. That'll actually be pretty cool. I think that would actually be very, very cool for us. It'll make it all automated, and our trains aren't going to have to worry anymore. The more stuff we can automate like this, the better. Now, obviously, I want to have dedicated refueling stations, and I kind of want to blueprint them because I'm going to be using them all over the place. So the trains will go to the nearest refueling station, basically. And I want these refueling stations to also have loading bays so that they can be have more fuel delivered to them when they need it. I'm fine with this completely being full. I don't see a reason not to. But we'll probably be using a little bit of combinator wizardry to balance that out and actually turn stations on and off depending on whether there's available solid fuel at that station for it to for you to use. Ooh, I dislike crossing these in that way. It always worries me that the train will actually clip them on the way past. Whether or not that ever actually happens, don't know. I just dislike the idea of it enough to try and avoid it wherever I possibly can. Right, so at this stage, we can now add this train to the network, and we should see our solid... Whoa, our solid fuel train come by. Wow. Did you see that? You are my witness. That train tried to kill me. I'm fairly certain that was attempted Aavak. Right, I want you to go to solid fuel drop-off. I want you to empty your cargo completely, and then I want you to go to the refueling station. We can change the name on that as well at some point, but let's have a watch of you. Now, this is our first complete refining route. Let's have a watch of you as you pull in. You go through the stacker, just park yourself, and start offloading all of that glorious, glorious solid fuel. Oh, happiest of days. Truly the happiest of them. There we are. This will all go up there then to continue being delivered on to the base. Now, I'm going to need to run this up a little bit further on from here, I would say. So we'll just duck underneath the copper line there. We'll probably run up around about the same spot that we have the water, because it's going to the same place, more or less. Let's just bring this all the way up. Of course, it's going to have to go through a bit of spaghetti to get there. How about I do this instead? There we go. We'll just, oops, duck to the side there. And if we join up more or less around there, that should be golden. Yes, I know. Glorious belt spaghetti. I'm excited too. I'm going to have... Well, I may have been a dirt there, but that's fine. Look, it adds character to the base. I don't care what you say about efficiency. There we are. And at that point, we're sorted. We're sorted, he says, as he just disconnects all of the power in the base. Now, this is the problem. We now pretty much exclusively want solid fuel to be running the base. It lasts longer, and if I actually grab some coal and some solid fuel, we can do a direct comparison. So solid coal has 4 megajoules, solid fuel has 12 megajoules. Obviously, the vehicle statistics don't make a lick of difference to our smelters and our boilers, but they are important nevertheless. Let's branch this off a little bit sooner, and then across like that. And we should be able to just have the coal at this point running straight down to our grenade production. We don't need anything else happening with that. The coal that's already in the system will get used up eventually. But there we go. This will run down and will fuel our grenades, or rather our grenade production. We can also get rid of these as well. That's probably going to last for an enormous amount of time, simply because we're not breaking it down that frequently. But there we go. We're filling the line. Oh, this is glorious. We do need a couple more boilers, though, before we can really start expanding on the other side. So let's go ahead and add an extra 4 boilers into this mix. I think that would be quite well advised at this stage. Let's have that in there. We are, of course, going to want to connect these up, like so. And, oh, actually, that one already covers it, so that's fine. We'll have those in there as well. There we are. Everything is upgraded, and I feel pretty happy about this. These are going to continue to load up, or rather, cycle through the coal that's available. I'm fairly certain that they'll work backwards, so they'll be dropping off the coal rather than moving the solid fuel, but eventually that'll all get to where it needs to go. And at this point, all of our smelters are going to be switching over to using solid fuel. They'll burn for a lot longer per block, and hopefully our solid fuel production is going to be able to keep up. I can't imagine that it won't, but we are going to have to scale that up a little bit more, I suspect. Now down here, do I really care about this having that much solid fuel? It is a bit overkill. Not gonna lie, it is a tiny bit overkill, but go big or go home, I guess, maybe something like that. I don't know, but we're gonna sit with that. We've just finished mining productivity, so our oil wells will be doing their job a tiny bit better. We've now actually got braking force, which would increase the top speed because they'll be able to keep it going for longer. Now, in the next episode, we're gonna have to start looking at blue science because we desperately want to get to the advanced oil processing. It's honestly such a massive upgrade. It is worth making a beeline for, which means we're going to have to set up an area which is able to manufacture the components for it. And if we don't want to keep tacking things onto the bootstrap base and thereby invalidating the whole bootstrap element of it, we need to decide on a new area to do that. I'm pretty happy with the fact that we have built our first proper production facility away from the bootstrap base, so at least we're not adding that onto it. But we need to continue as we mean to go on, and that means we need to continue to build new areas further away, and in fact taking some time here and there to strip away some of the functionality of the bootstrap base and put it somewhere else as well. So for example, we might want to make an area that is purely designed for the processing of all of the rail components and so on and so forth, but that is going to necessitate creating new pickups for the plates and the various items that we've got on the bus. But these are all concerns for the future. I really do hope you have enjoyed today's episode. I'm actually really, really pleased with what we've managed to do today. We have started the production of solid fuel. We desperately need to increase the refining speed down here, and that's something I will work on off camera, and we'll bring it back to a, well, slightly expanded considering the rail is going through it, but we can always just hop over the rail. That isn't too much of a problem for us, but we're going to have to expand out this refining. Once we get to advanced refining, we will take a massive load off the petroleum gas because we can crack heavy oil into light oil and just use light oil for making the solid fuel, which is a significantly better resource to make it out of. But that is going to be it from me. So I hope you enjoyed. I look forward to your comments down below, but until next time, and as always, to take care, everyone.